Today on Aussie Arvos, we are building a custom aluminium fuel tank from scratch. It's going to be super light, super strong, and have a huge storage capacity.
This is what happens when you have a big fuel tank. The whole servo gets stuck behind you.
But I've never TIG welded before, so this is going to be one massive learning curve for me, and I'm going to need some help.
Never TIG welded before.
Never?
No.
All right.
So maybe start on a practice piece.
It's definitely going to be a challenge, but we'll get you there. Not bad.
Stacking dimes. G'day guys, welcome back to Aussie Arvos. Today we are down with Jeff from JefFabCustoms, and if you don't remember Jeff, he helped me build the snorkel and airbox for the Patrol, which I'm obviously super happy with. So we've come back to him again because we're actually going to be fabricating a secondary fuel tank for the Patrol. Now we're going to be going through some of the design sort of processes and factors in designing a tank, as well as obviously the manufacturing. And if Jeff lets me play on his equipment, he might actually teach me how to TIG weld. But I don't know, do you reckon you'll be able to teach me how to TIG weld in like 2 days?
We'll see how we go.
Yeah, we can only try. So we're going to get stuck into it. And also too, if you haven't noticed, we're actually in a new factory. So Jeff's upgraded to a slightly bigger factory and he's got a bit of a showroom and stuff. So awesome to see that he's moving up in the world and he's got a bigger space to play with, more cars can be done. So yeah, I suppose let's get stuck into it. So I've got the canopy off of the Patrol as well as the under tray toolboxes removed, and that's just going to help with access to get in and mount and create brackets and that sort of thing. Prior to this, obviously I sent a few measurements across to Jeff and he actually sent back a design, or sort of basic sort of design he'd come up with, and with all the different sort of components you need for a fuel tank to work properly. So we're going to run through that briefly soon, but for now we're sort of only got a few days to do this, so we can get stuck straight into it and start doing some TIG welding and that sort of thing, and hopefully we've got a tank in a couple of days. So I've just test fitted our folded bits of material for the tank now. I got Jeff to pre-fold these for us. I sent him across a few measurements of the rough sort of shape under the car and what I had to work with. So he's got these made up. Now, in terms of the actual material, these are aluminium, and there's a few different materials you can use when building a fuel tank. Some people use stainless steel, some people use mild steel, some people use aluminium, but I went with Ali on Jeff's recommendation. So Jeff, why would you use Ali for a fuel tank as opposed to other materials?
Just the weight of it. It keeps the weight down, but using the right thickness of material also gives you that strength in the tank you want in case any branches or sticks, rocks fling up under the car. It won't rust like mild steel, and it's not heavy like stainless. All materials are good for making fuel tanks, but my personal preference is making them out of alloy.
And as for the shape of the tank, we're pretty much going with a big, massive rectangle, just for simplicity's sake and volume. Now, a lot of aftermarket tanks you'll see have all sort of different, notches and things to maximize the amount of fuel storage in and around some of the other components. But working with a ute actually makes it sort of easy. It's just a big open space under the drive shaft. So this makes it easy. It also means there's less welds, which Jeff explained as, building tanks, the less sort of welds you have, the stronger it's going to be essentially. There's less areas that can fail. So that's what we're going with, a big rectangle. So we're going to start by whacking in some baffles, which we'll talk more about them in a second, as well as working out where we're going to fit our fuel sender. All right, so the first step in the tank sort of fabricating process is putting in baffles. Now, the reason it's sort of the first step is because it has to be done while the tank's still open and you can get access to the inside to weld it all securely. So Jeff has gone and folded up some baffles for the tank. Now, baffles come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and they're pretty much there to stop fuel from sloshing from one side to the other, which could either cause, a weight shift, or it could cause the pickup, which is located down at the bottom of the tank, to be starved of fuel.
The reason we made the baffle this shape is, one, the top and bottom fold give rigidity to the actual baffle itself so it doesn't flex, and the sides are the shape they are so that it doesn't put direct side load on the actual tank when it flexes, or if it does flex in the tank. So you can put a nice weld down those edges and it's not going to cause extra strain on the sidewall of the tank and cause the tank to actually crack from the inside out.
And the other thing you'll notice is when this slides in nicely is that we've left a sufficient gap underneath for fuel to pass through. So, if you want to use the truck fuel filler at the servo, you're going to have enough fuel flow there so that it's not going to, come spurting back out your fuel hose. So there's plenty there, but it'll mainly, stop fuel from sloshing quickly from one side of the tank to the other. So we'll figure out where they're going to be finally positioned, and then we can start welding them in.
Any TIG welding?
Never TIG welded before.
Never?
No.
All right.
So maybe start on a practice piece. All right, so we're just about to start doing some of the first welding, but before we do it, I'm actually gonna have a crack of the TIG welder myself. Jeff here is gonna teach me a few things because he has a lot more experience than I do. I've actually never done it before. And that's why we're down here working with him, because he knows what he's doing. So, Jeff, why would someone TIG weld as opposed to using like a MIG welder or an arc welder?
TIG welders are mainly used above everything else for more precise work, like even just thinner materials. TIG welders are so much easier to weld thinner materials with because you can control the weld so much easier. Aluminium, much nicer, stronger weld than using a MIG. You can use a MIG for aluminium, but I find the welds aren't as good.
So I've done some MIG welding before, obviously. I'm not like awesome at it, but I can MIG weld. So going into TIG welding, what is it that makes it so much more difficult or more of an art than just using a MIG welder?
It's more the mix of having to use both your hands at once. So you've got to be able to watch the weld pool and then add the filler rod to that weld pool, as opposed to where a MIG is automatically feeding that wire into that pool for you. It's definitely going to be a challenge, I can tell you that, but because we're probably starting with one of the hardest materials to weld with the TIG, but we'll get you there.
Okay, well, there you go. I suppose from what I've heard, it's pretty much just practice, practice, practice. And yeah, you can't expect to be an ace at it on your first try. So yeah, I suppose we've got some scrap aluminium here to play with. So yeah, we're just gonna see if I can get somewhat of a weld that, you know, doesn't have holes blown right through it, I guess. So yeah, we'll see how we go.
What we'll get you doing is just gonna lay some beads on top of the plate, just so you can get an idea of how the process works before we go into something similar to what you're gonna be welding, like an edge and stuff like that. So just get you used to being able to lay dimes, essentially.
Stacking dimes.
I'm gonna start the arc, and you'll sort of start to see it melt. So once you see the aluminium melting, you can add your filler. And then the hotter the material gets, the faster you'll have to weld.
Right.
So you have a general understanding?
Yeah. So you're purposely at the start that we're letting the material heat up before you start adding
Yeah,
filler?
you have to wait until you see the material starting to melt, and then you'll be able to go.
Yeah,
All right.
Let's see. And how far am I roughly holding the tip?
You sort of want to hold it 5 to 10 mil off the material. So arc it close, and then you can lift it off.
All right.
And then turn it off.
So is that too close then?
So what you did then is you touched the wire onto the tungsten. So when once you start the arc, you want to lift it up a bit higher so that when you add your filler...
So the filler only touches the...
material,
Oh, okay, right. Oh, and I can see what you mean, so then you got to go and
so then we'll lineage that up, and then we'll go again.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, definitely different.
So just wait a bit longer. Yep, now start trying to add. Yep. Lift the tungsten up a little, yep. And then let go. So then you just let go of the button
and
stop it.
Okay.
So not bad.
Okay,
so I'd go a little slower at the start. Sort of hold like less dabbing.
Yeah.
And then as you start to go along, as the material heats up, you'll want to start adding material, adding filler rod faster.
Right, okay. And when you sort of like, when you've got the arc going on, you've added your bit of filler, you're sort of almost like letting the filler spread a bit.
Yeah, so you want to, as it goes in, you want to see it start to melt into the material and then move.
Okay, right. I think I get the idea of it anyway. You can see if you keep the heat on, it really starts to flow, and then you start,
Yeah, I reckon that's good enough to weld a baffle in.
Oh, we can try, we can try. Right, so I'll heat up the base material first, and then...
But that'll hold.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'll hold. Do you sort of look at like, if you look at the backside, do you sort of see how much?
You'd be pretty much at 100% penetration there.
Oh yeah, I can see it there.
So,
because I think it was getting pretty hot towards the end, yeah. Is that sort of what, is there a certain sort of, I suppose you just know obviously.
Yeah,
you
you sort of just you learn to gauge it. Like if you burn through a little bit there, that's fine. You can always hit it with an orbital sander or a grinder later, and you can buff it out. But no, that's fine.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Yeah, I get the idea of it though. It's hard to like sometimes to get the, I don't know, like the pull to like form where you want it, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, you've sort of started with one of the hardest materials to TIG weld.
Right, okay.
For basics, like...
Nah, cool. Oh, I might let you do a few anyway, I reckon. I mean, it's a weld. It's not the prettiest, but it'll, yeah. Like, there's like little holes and stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, so I'll probably just give that one a quick buzz over.
Yeah.
Just to make sure it doesn't try and break away.
Yeah.
And then, but that one there's all right. That one's pretty good. That one will be fine.
Yep. How's that? You just recovered that weld. I suppose you sort of forget, it's almost like soldering, I suppose, almost in a sense. Like the materials there, you just got to like melt it to get it to go into the right spots.
I think once you get the hang of it, it'll just come naturally every time. Especially with aluminium, you've got to get that right rhythm. You've got to be able to find that pull and just know when to add, how fast to add, how much to add.
Yeah, it gives you an appreciation for all the people that TIG weld all the time and can do it well. It's hard. So baffles are all welded in now. We're just sort of about to mark out where our fuel pickup and sender is going to go. So this is just a factory pickup out of like a petrol rear tank and the sender as well. So in terms of how it's going to fit, the pickup itself, or the pickup tube, is the perfect height for the tank, which we sort of planned, which was good. So it means that I'm obviously going to be able to get full sort of fuel capacity out of the tank. Now, in terms of actually positioning this in the tank, Jeff, is there anything that we need to sort of look out for in where we place it?
Not really, because we've baffled it. When you're moving around, because the tank's so wide and all the rest of it, you're not going to starve the car of fuel if it misses fuel for just a little bit. But we're going to put it just here in this back corner. So it'll be sort of in line where all the fuel lines are in the car. There's plenty of room for the fuel gauge float to swing up and down, and it'll be right where everything needs to be.
And you thought, well, we're also going to add like a baffle around the base of the pickup as well?
Yeah, so we're going to add just like it'll basically look like a cup with some holes in the very bottom, so that if fuel is moving fast across the bottom of the tank, it'll be moving slow right at the actual pickup.
Okay, yeah. So we've just welded in the baffle that goes around the base of the pickup. Now, pretty much the idea behind this is to ensure that we don't have any starvation of fuel from the pickup. So if you can imagine, when you're forward driving off-road, if I all of a sudden get the car on a crazy angle like this and all the fuel rushes to that side of the tank, this baffle is going to make sure that a bit of fuel stays in around the base of the pickup. And the idea behind the little hole is that it's open on this side so that when it leans this way, it catches the fuel, but when fuel eventually rushes back and levels out, it'll get actually funneled into the pickup. And as you can imagine, if the tank was going down at an even rate and it was all level, this is just going to keep having fuel float into it regardless. So it's just a little sort of, you know, as Jeff said before, it's not an absolute necessity, but if you're going to all the effort to make a tank, you might as well do it, you know, sort of properly and put every sort of precaution you can in it. So it's pretty easy to add in a bit of 5-inch aluminium, so that's what we've done.
We then drilled out the hole for the fuel sender and pickup assembly. The next step was to temporarily tack the tank together so we could test fit it under the car and correctly locate our filler and breather points.
Yep, that'll hold. So what we'll do is use the scraper to just push it in there, and all we do is lever that up, and we can just push it down, which gives us that perfect corner, and then that's where we want to weld it.
Once you stick the corners together, it actually comes together all pretty well. Unreal.
And if you have a feel of how heavy that is, like there's actually not that much weight
compared
to it
to
all.
like, I remember
if you make that out of, even if you're using say like 2mm stainless, that's going to be 3 times as heavy.
Yeah.
So there's, you're probably like another 10 litres plus of fuel.
Yeah.
And with full drives these days, like
every bit of weight
you
counts.
need to think about every kilo in the car.
Yeah, literally.
We then drilled and tapped holes to secure the fuel sender, as well as drilled holes for the breathers, fill and drain points. Then we could pull the tank apart for it to be cleaned and then reassembled for the final time.
All right, so Jeff's been working hard getting this thing all welded up. He's gone and done all the seams, which I think he said it required like 9 filler rods, which is pretty crazy to think. It's a lot of welding. And if you have a look at these welds closely, you can see how to be able to run a bead that long and do it that consistently the whole way, it's very hard to do. So he knows what he's doing, definitely. So with that done, we've pretty much got a tank now, and now we've got to go around and plug all the holes essentially. So we've got like a drain hole that we're gonna put like a tapped bung in, so I can put a bolt in there, drain the tank if I ever need to. And then we'll probably just do a final fitment check before we stick in our filler and breather ports. All right, so we've just got the tank sitting dummied up under the tray. Now, to mount this tank, we are going to be mounting it off the back of the tray mounts. I want it to be mounted to the chassis as opposed to the tray, just because if I do want to pull the tray off, I don't want to have to pull the whole tank with it. So we're going to be making some brackets that utilise these holes on the tray mounts. So while we've got the tank sitting where we want it and we're happy with it, we're going to do some marking out. Then we can rip it back out again and start making up some brackets. So we're just about to weld on some reinforcement plates that our mounting brackets will attach to. Now, Jeff, what's the idea behind putting these plates on the side of the tank?
So the idea of putting these plates on the side of the tank is to reinforce where you're mounting onto the tank so that it's not directly to the side of the tank and causing stress. We're going to fully weld these plates onto the side of the tank, and then we weld our bracket to this so that way it shares the load over a larger surface area as opposed to just on a straight run, which can cause cracking and additional stress where you don't want it.
And the idea of the holes is so we can plug weld the centers so that rather than just having a weld around the outside and the middle effectively being not fixed, this will ensure that the center of the plates are also attached to the tank.
So same as when you do like chassis bracing on a car, you don't just put a plate on the outside that's got all the holes cut out of it, so that you can actually weld it to it and it doesn't allow anything to crumble in between, like flex between the two plates.
Yeah, okay.
Now, after only using the TIG a couple times, I can already feel myself improving. Once you get an idea of how it operates and how the heat transfers through the material, you can quickly start to improve your welds.
Not bad.
It's gonna be better.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a bit nervous going to TIG for the first time, but after only spending a couple hours on it and having a good instructor to guide me, I'm confident that it's a skill that I can improve on in the future.
No, I reckon with a bit of practice, I reckon it's just one of those things. I mean, the more you did it though, you just, like, it get a hell of a lot easier.
So with my welding done for the day, I handed back over to Jeff to finish off the final welding on the tank.
One fully welded tank.
That's all the welding done. A lot in it. All right, so the tank is now completely welded up. So just there, we've gone and welded the fill port and the breather ports, as well as finishing off the welding on the mounting brackets. So the way the brackets work for this, it's like a two-piece style bracket. So Jeff's also made up some plates that pretty much allow us to still fit the tank up into the car, and then these bridge the gap between the tank and the tray mounts. So it's all gonna fit in there super well. We've just gotta drill a couple holes. So I suppose the next step for the tank is to take it home and install it ourselves and all plumb it up. So that's the next step. But Jeff, you've been an absolute legend in doing all this for us. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and after he let me have a go on the TIG, I can see how hard it is, and I've got a newfound respect for all you TIG welders out there that know how to do this consistently and actually get it right. So yeah, Jeff, you've done a wicked job, so thanks very much.
No worries.
And if any of you guys, again, anything sort of custom fab, I mean, you can add fuel tanks to the repertoire now, but Jeff is versed in doing all sorts of fab stuff. His bread and butter is snorkels and airboxes and intake stuff, but he also does bar work and
pretty much anything metal fabrication. We pretty much do it.
Yeah, so Jeff's got it all covered. So if you are looking to get some stuff done, hit him up either on the social pages at JefFabCustoms, or you've got the website now as well.
Yep.
So
yeah, we've got the website now, JefFabCustoms.com.
Yep, so go check it out. It's all there. And yeah, we'll be back here soon, no doubt. I'm sure there'll be more things I want done on the patrol, or maybe I just want to brush up on my TIG skills a bit more. So yeah, too easy. Let's see you back at home and we'll install the tank. All right, so we're back from JefFab. Now we've got the patrol in the shed, we've got the tank, and we're ready to throw it in. Now, to make this as easy as possible for myself, I've backed the patrol in to the hoist because I'm actually gonna be lifting the tray off. Now, obviously you saw when we were at JefFab's, we could fit it from underneath the car, and that's obviously still gonna be an option if I ever have to pull this tank out for whatever reason. I don't wanna have to take the tray off. But for the purposes of fitting and plumbing and fitting up the dual tank system, it's going to be easier without the tray in the way. So I'm just going to unbolt it, lift it up on the hoist, and it's going to allow me to drop this thing in from the top and get all the bracketry sitting right. As you can see, tray's off, and look how much room we have to play with now. This is going to make life so much easier.
I clamped the tank and brackets in position so I could mark out where the mounting holes would need to be drilled. I also made up some steel sandwich plates with a rubber strip to ensure that the holes in the aluminium don't elongate, and that there is some vibration dampening between the chassis and tank.
Not going anywhere. So the tank is all mounted, super secure, not going anywhere. That come up awesome. Now, next we can sort of get ready to start plumbing some stuff up. The first thing I gotta do is actually mount the dual tank system. So now being dual tanks, I've got the 120 litre alley tank as well as the factory 90 litre rear tank. Now to switch between tanks, I'm gonna be using the dual tank system that I pulled out of the Patrol before I rebuilt it. And so basically that just uses a couple of magnetic valves. It pretty much controls which tank you pull from and which one you return to. So it doesn't mean that the tanks are, connected. A lot of cars these days will have one tank feed into the other. But this is actually, I think, a much better system because it lets you draw independently, and if you bust one tank or get a hole in it, the other one's not going to get affected. You can still pull from the other tank. So I just got to find a spot to mount these. I've already got all the wiring from the old harness all still in there, so that's easy. So we'll find a spot to mount these and then we can start running some fuel lines. All right, so we're ready to start running the fuel lines now. I've gone and bought a bunch of new fuel hose. I just ran down to Pertec to grab all this stuff. Now I've got all different shapes and sizes from filler hose to breather hose, feed and return lines, you name it. So we're gonna be replacing all of it. And yeah, I'm pretty much just gonna start hacking and cutting this stuff to length and plumbing everything up, which should be pretty easy. I've got all the clamps and everything I need. So yeah, let's start plumbing it up.
So the tank is all plumbed up and looking really neat. I'm stoked with how everything fitted in and I'm super keen to fill it up. But before we put any diesel in it, we have to drop the tray back on and add the final finishing touches.
All right, so we're down here at the servo. We're just about ready to fill up now. I've gone and plumbed up the tank fillers. So what I've actually used for the tank fillers are their stainless steel boat deck fillers. Now, the reason I went for these is because they have a very clean outside look, but it does mean that I've had to modify them to have a fuel breather, which pretty much ensures that when you're filling up your car, the diesel doesn't spurt back out at you. It gives the air a place to recirculate back and come out. Now, the intent was to have two of them plumbed into this one part of the tray, which is when I built the tray, I designed it like that. But upon installing the tank, I realized that this didn't have enough fall to get the fuel into the tank. So we ended up relocating the second one up here, but it's come up very neat anyway. So happy with that. Now it's time to fill it. So we're gonna go figure out how much this tank actually holds, how many liters, and more importantly, how much it's gonna cost me. So let's go over to the Bowser and fill her up. So these fillers use a key. Now I modified the key slightly to make it easier to hold. I'm gonna put this on a chain or something, but you pretty much just stick your hand in the back there and pretty easy. And it's sort of tucked away, hidden away. It's not gonna get damaged, so that's easy. Now, let's see how much it takes. So we calculated the volume of the tank at 120 litres. Let's see how accurate it is now. Remember, there will be a little breathing room on top. You're never gonna get a full fill, so I'm gonna estimate around 110. Have we got any leaks? That's what I think I should be looking for. None yet. Broken $100. This is what happens when you have a big fuel tank. The whole servo gets stuck behind you. 100 kilos in the tank. It's gonna be so expensive when I fill up two tanks. You must feel like this when you do yours. Oh, we hit 110. Okay. Oh. So that's a click. Should I just go to click? Yeah. All right. I'm gonna call it there. 117, so that's pretty good. Or in other words, $227. So as you saw there, the final figure for the new fuel tank was 118 litres, which is very close to the 120 litres that we had calculated prior. And between that and the 90 litre rear tank that I already have, I think that's going to be more than enough fuel for the touring that Patrick and I have planned. So massive thanks again to JefFab. Make sure to go and suss his stuff out if you want anything fabrication done for your four-wheel drive. And yeah, if you enjoyed watching this episode, give it a like, get subscribed, and we'll see you in the next one.